I'm going to show you a way that we grew out a large number of colonies of hives really quickly early in our beekeeping career without previously having a lot of hives. It's a good way to grow your numbers if you're starting out small. This process only uses one frame of brood with the adhering bees, so it don't take up many resources to do this. You split it again and separate it from 1 to 2 colonies soon after the new queen in this split begins to start laying, and start the process all over. It's a little bit more time consuming and it involves a little bit more work, but it's easy work. These 2 frame nucs are very easy, very fun to deal with. You can do it with using queen cells or a walk-away split, just allowing them to make their own queen out of eggs on the frame that you give them. The way that we do, you start with 1 frame of brood in this. This is a 2 frame nuc. We're going to pull 1 frame of brood from another hive. You want that brood you want a good solid sheet of brood, ideally with a little food on it. You want some cap brood and some young open larvae on it, because that young open larva is gonna hold those nurse bees on this frame. It's gonna give you more nurse bees in your split that won't fly back to the original colony. And that'll make a good split for you in this 2 frame nuc. You also want to give the other one give a new clean foundation that hasn't been drawn at all. Just give that as your second frame, because you want the bees to draw foundation rather than store up nectar or honey and fill in one of these frames. So when they're bringing in nectar, they're either going to have to store it up or draw comb, one of the 2. So with that, half of this hive is empty, clean foundation. That's going to push them to draw this out and leave our frames open for the new queen to lay in. All right, as we put that frame of brood foundation in, we're going to close this hive up, put the top on it, come back the next day, and we'll drop a queen cell just right in between the frames, right in the top, and close it up. And it works a lot better. Anytime you're making a split, it works better to give them feed. So we feed them with a jar in a Boardman feeder. We take one end of this is made with an open slot to hold a Boardman feeder. So it's closed up. No other bees can come in and out of that end. They can't get to the feed. The other end has just a very small opening to help with robbing. So this jar feeder just pops in and out on this side. This is a quart feeder. It's better in these 2 framers. That's a little bit too much syrup. It's better to use a pint wide mouth jar. That gives them enough to get over that initial split of losing the forage workforce and to get started drawing that second comb. So that quart jar gives them a little bit too much. They start to store some of that up, and the idea of this is you just want them to stay alive. You don't want them, you want them feeding enough to stay alive, but not store up in excess, because you want 2 good frames of brood in this before you split again. So get it closed up, get some feed in the jar. We wait 3 to 4 weeks, depending on the hives and the queens, what type of bees you got. That should be enough time to come back and check and make sure that the hive did get queen right. And see how much she's laid. So we want to get two frames with enough brood on it to make another split. If not, we'll close it up and give her a little more time. We'll split by removing 1 frame. So this queen's done got mated, come back, laid up both of these frames. We're going to split again. We'll take by removing 1 frame out. This will have the queen. We'll take the queen with this frame and the bees that's on the frame. Take it and move it in a 5 frame nuc and start a queen right colony to grow out into a regular full size colony. Behind, you'll be left with just your one frame of brood, just like we started originally. You start the process all over again. Just add another empty foundation to it, clean foundation, and start again with your queen cell. You can do walk-away splits, and we did a lot of that in the early on. Might not have access to queen cells. Supposedly don't make as good of queens. I can't verify that, because we certainly made a lot of good queens using walk-away splits. But one thing you have to do, if you've already took the split out, or if it's your original split you're making, make sure that your frame of brood that you move in has eggs on it, because that's what you want your queens to be made from, is made out of those eggs. You don't want them to start with larvae, because the queens are not going to be as good. They're going to be started at an older age. So start with a frame with eggs on it. Get your box made up, finished, close it up, wait 4 days. Come back in 4 days, and you're going to have queen cells on that frame. 4 days is a good time period when you come back. You're going to have most likely some capped queen cells and some open queen cells. Those capped queen cells after 4 days are going to be started with the older age larvae. You're going to want to remove those. You want to leave behind one open queen cell, because that open queen cell has not aged out enough to be capped off. So that shows that she was started as a younger queen than those closed ones. So that's going to give you a better queen than the closed ones will. You want to only leave one, because if there's a fairly decent amount of bees in this box, and you have multiple virgins that emerges out, they will swarm with those virgin bees. It is very, very, very common for that to happen. So leave behind just one, the best looking open queen cell after 4 days. Leave it behind. That'll only leave one queen to emerge out, and they won't be able to swarm. Going through time, dealing with these, making multiple rounds, sometimes, especially during the nectar flow, you will have a frame that gets overwhelmingly filled up with honey, nectar and honey. If you have that happen, being only 2 frames, you can't make a split with that at that point. So just shake the bees from the full nectar frame, shake the bees off in the box, pull that frame out, do something else with it, store it, put it in another hive, whatever you got to do. Add a new clean foundation back in that box, close it up, give them a few days to draw the comb out on that foundation and get it laid up, and then come back and make your split. One thing to consider with these very small colonies, the small amount of bees that are housed in this box, is it's best to do this if you're doing it outside the honey flow, and if you're going through this process, eventually you're going to have these still containing bees outside of the honey flow. So robbing becomes an issue. So it's these small clusters of bees, small amounts of bees in this box, they have a hard time defending themselves when you have them around large hives. So it's better to do this process, make these up and move them away from your existing yards. Find a new place to set them at by themselves, and it'll cut down on your robbing tremendously. It also works better though during the honey flow. You'll have your best queen right success, and they'll grow out better during the honey flow. You'll produce more nucs during the honey flow with these 2 framers, or any other split for that matter. Another thing to think about early in the spring is freezing nights, cold nights. If it's still getting down to freezing during the night, you may want to think about waiting till a little bit warmer weather, because if you set 1 frame of bees in here, you can shake off some more bees in it to make sure that frame's got enough bees to cover that frame of brood really well when it gets cold. But otherwise, without shaking a lot of bees in it, you take that frame that's covered in bees on both sides. When it gets cold and that cluster contracts and they draw up into a cluster for cold weather, all the brood that's outside of that smaller cluster is going to die off during the cold night. So it's probably better, rather than shaking a lot of bees in here and crowding out this hive, it's probably better just to wait until it warms up a little bit, and things will go a lot better for you. They'll die back, and it just slows the process up a lot. Also, when you move those 5-framer, these splits out of this 2-framer into a 5-framer, going into the end of the honey flow, going through the summertime, you're still going to be growing those 5-framers out if you're trying to expand into a larger operation, a larger bee yard. Once the honey flow ends, you're going to have to keep syrup on those hives, 1-to-1 sugar water syrup. Keep it on those 5-frame nucs until they are built out, got their 5 frames drawn out, got a good amount of bees in the hive, and got plenty of brood, and have some stores built up in that hive. Then you can leave them in that 5-frame to overwinter them that way, or move them into a 10-framer and feed them out a little more. But you got, without plenty of stores and without nectar or syrup coming in, they're not going to draw those frames out, and you're going to be stuck with an undersized population that moving into wintertime is just not going to be enough bees to overwinter, and they'll die out, and you'll be wasted all of your work that you've done creating these. So in the end, just be sure you get your final hives fed out and grown out to make it through the wintertime. But it's a great process to grow your hives out quickly. It's an easy process. It's an enjoyable process. You don't have to set boxes off of this. You can easily find queens, easy to manipulate, and it's just a good way to grow bees and also raise some queens.